Hey guys, what's up? Today we're here for Jarvan the Fourth, the future King of Demacia. Now before we start, as we've known from the Garen story, Demacia isn't as perfect as it sounds. Demacia stood as a kingdom of might and honorable values. It defends its people and land with its formidable military force. But within its kingdom, there is turmoil and feud. The very own ideals of the kingdom has made it isolated from its allies. Dispute from nobles themselves is a general occurrence. You see, Demacia has a touch of Game of Thrones King's Landing itself, but a bit lighter. Seeking favors of the powerful, forming secret alliances to topple each other, building influence and power for their very own families, distrust and rivalries, duels to the death when a family reputation has been shamed. Even, although not proven, assassinations. That's normal though. I mean, what kind of kingdom would it be if they don't have those, right? That's like Kingdom 101. However, the biggest problem of Demacia is its fear of magic. David Blaine will be an instant outcast on this kingdom. So anyway, the birthing of Jarvan IV was actually a political move made by King Jarvan III. The current King Jarvan III saw all the bickering within the kingdom and planned to marry Lady Catherine to cement alliances. Lady Catherine was loved by the people, nobles, and common folks alike. They got married and Lady Catherine got pregnant. During this time, there was peace in the kingdom, even among the nobles. However, Lady Catherine died in childbirth. With the king devastated, he vowed to never again take a wife. The king raised Jarvan IV with the finest education and learning that Demacia could offer. He was being groomed to be the next king. All of Demacia's ideals and values fed to Jarvan in spoonfuls. As he grew older, he was given a mentor. His father's very own right-hand man, Xin Zhao. Xin Zhao came from distant Ionia, loyal to the bones in protecting his king, Jarvan III. Xin Zhao taught the prince spiritual philosophies as well as the arts of war. Military training is required even to the royals. During this time is when Jarvan met a brash youth, full of confidence even though both of them were just greenhorns. The youth had an unbending determination and fortitude, and in the eyes of Jarvan, a true Demacian still. Jarvan learned that the youth was named Garen, hailed from the Crown Guard family. Garen himself admired Jarvan because of his tactical instincts. Being of the same age and having mutual respect, the two became best friends and was inseparable. Bromance. When Jarvan finally came of age, he was rewarded by his father with an honorable rank of general. Though the rank was given as just an honorary title, Jarvan was determined to prove himself to the kingdom. He went to the battlefield to the lands beyond the Argent Mountains, where there is a perpetual battle for territories by the Noxian Empire. It's a lawless land where warring tribes and raiders would constantly threaten the allies of Demacia. A perfect land where Jarvan could make a name for himself. He vowed to bring order and peace to the region. Jarvan's great-grandfather was slain by a Noxian brute ages ago. Subjugating this land would not only prove himself worthy, but would also restore a tarnished family reputation. Jarvan's armies won victory after victory. However, his eyes were opened on the carnage that was happening outside their kingdom. These outlying towns were Demacian allies, under the protection of the kingdom. The chaos and mayhem troubled him deeply. When the news came that the gates of mourning had fallen, Jarvan resolved himself to drive into the Noxian territory. His lieutenants were against it and counseled Jarvan not to continue with his plan. Nonetheless, Jarvan and his army drove onwards to enemy territory. Soon enough, with the increasing number of foes, the battalions were forced to spread thin. Jarvan was encircled and was defeated by the fierce Noxian warbands. Their army couldn't even reach Travail, much less the Gates of Mourning. The young prince, refusing to surrender, gathered the remaining survivors and fled into the forest, only to be hounded by enemy scouts. His men were hunted down one by one until Jarvan himself was hit by an arrow on his side. Jarvan collapsed under a fallen tree, barely conscious of his surroundings. He was devastated. He had failed his family, his kingdom, but more importantly, his brothers in arms. Jarvan, the one and only heir of the Demacian kingdom, would have died alone in the forest were it not for Shyvana. The violet-skinned woman somehow carried Jarvan, armor and all the way back to Demacian territory. At Ranwall, they took shelter in an old castle that were garrisoned by Demacian soldiers. Jarvan saw how kind Shyvana is during his days of healing. He saw a worthy companion in Shyvana's eyes. The soldiers and garrison commander at first were on guard and suspicious of Shyvana. However, they could not deny the huge debt they owe her. The whole kingdom itself is indebted to her. This violet-skinned, strange-mannered woman saved the one and only prince of Demacia. They treated her with warmth as the days passed. However, Shyvana herself had her own problems. She was being pursued by a great and powerful elemental dragon, Eva. Shyvana felt darkness in the wind. She had sensed it before, and the last time she did, she had to bury her own adopted father while hiding in the woods. When the great elemental dragon was spotted in the skies, Shyvana prepared to leave. She didn't dare risk the death of innocent people because of her. It had happened before. She won't let it happen again. Jarvan saw her preparing to leave and forbade her to go. A debt was yet to be paid, and the proud prince would pay it even if it meant going face to face against a dragon. It was then that Jarvan learned that the monstrous dragon circling in the skies is of Shyvana's own blood, her own mother. Eva rained down flames of death onto the garrison, driving the men inside into panic and chaos. Eva swooped down, ready to tear the stonework of the castle and finish the job. It was then that Shyvana leaped forth, transforming in mid-air and bellowing a challenge to her broodmother, the murderer of her father. It was a horrific battle where dragon blood rained down from the skies. Jarvan rallied the soldiers and provided support for Shyvana. Arrows and spears were flying, preventing Eva to get the upper hand. Whenever Eva would try to take out the pesky humans from the garrison, Shyvana would be there to impede her. Jarvan showed great leadership and strength as he rallied his men in battle. Healers were assigned to the wounded. Jarvan made sure the line held as they provided support from below. Bleeding from dozens of wounds, Shyvana grappled Eva to the ground. Finally, the creature was slain as Shyvana broke the creature's neck upon the flagstones. The great elemental dragon was dead, slain by a half-human, half-dragon. Although Shyvana dealt the final blow, it was the combined efforts of Jarvan and the Demacian people that made it possible. With the dragon's skull in tow, Jarvan went home to the kingdom in triumph, the violet-skinned lady at his side. The king was emotional when he saw Jarvan walk through his courts. The king thought of the prince dead ever since the news of his defeat had reached them. But instead of a cold corpse, the prince returned with a monstrous dragon skull. The same dragon that had been wreaking havoc in the neighboring towns just outside Demacia. The nobles were grateful for his return, but in closed doors, they would whisper about the strange violet creature that stands beside the prince and would question its intentions. Jarvan himself though was finally at ease. He resumed his military position with renewed vigor. With his good friend Garen, now sword captain of the elite Dauntless Vanguard, and Shyvana together with the other Ranwall veterans, training other border garrisons of the kingdom, Jarvan finally felt assured that Demacia was well equipped and could answer any emergent threat. However, he didn't know that the biggest threat lies within Demacia itself. The Mage Seeker Order had wormed its way through the noble families and elite circles of the kingdom. With this, they had gained more support and influence over Demacia. They imprisoned anyone deep in the dungeons for possessing magical powers. The afflicted ones, so they say. They gained favors from the elite and powerful by turning a blind eye to the afflicted family members of those nobles themselves. The persecutions and methods were getting out of hand, and soon enough, rebellion were being whispered in the dark alleys of the kingdom. You see, it wasn't just the mages who resented the mage seekers, but also the families of those persecuted. Mother and child will be separated if one of them had magic. Old or young, none of it mattered. Families were broken all for the name of law. The rumor of afflicted nobles getting a pass from the Mage Seekers didn't help quell the anger of the involved citizens. Finally, an incident with Silas, an escapee from the very dungeons of Demacia, will spark the inevitable rebellion. Silas, named as the most dangerous mage in Demacia, had escaped during his execution. With his powers, he freed the other mage prisoners and even took down Garen. The mage prisoners, finally tasting freedom after years of torture, had no intentions to go back. If needed, they would rather kill than go back to the dungeons. These people were the very citizens that Demacia had sworn to protect. However, the fear and resentment that had been brewing for ages forced the Demacian citizens to take arms against their very own countrymen. That was how low the Demacian kingdom had fallen. However, it would only get worse. Jarvan, who was busy fending off the mages and fighting Silas himself, ordered for the safety of his father, the king. The king was escorted to a safe and secured part of the castle as Jarvan fought on. Eventually, Jarvan himself was beaten by Silas. The Petricite walls and stones that pretty much made all of Demacia, the Petricite anti-magic that the Demacians are so proud of, led to the kingdom's defeat. You see, Petricite doesn't just remove magic, it absorbs it, or to be precise, it gets stored within, which can then be released for later use. Silas, with his skills, used the magic within the castle walls that had been absorbing magic for centuries to defeat Jarvan and his men. With Jarvan finally defeated, Silas roamed the castle looking for the king, as he planned to execute the king in public and in front of the citizens that he had wronged. Although he didn't really have any plan to kill him, just to humiliate the king and use him as a hostage so he and the other mages could leave the kingdom safely. You see, the patrols and main army of Demacia were in the borders protecting its land. That even includes Shyvana. So once they get back, Silas and his tiny rebellion is dead meat. Anyway, Jarvan was forced to tag along, bound and chained as they looked for the king. When they finally found King Jarvan III, he was already a cold corpse, lying in the floor together with his dead guards. Silas himself was puzzled since it wasn't him. Jarvan, seeing his dead father, was enraged and blamed Silas and the rebel mages. Silas, thinking it was the other rebel mages who got to the king first, decided to use the prince instead. So Jarvan the prince was put in public display and was forced to choose. Either get executed or eat a rat in front of his citizens. Before Jarvan could choose, Lux came to the rescue. Lux, who to be honest is the reason for all of this shit that's happening, is actually deeply connected to Silas. But that's for a different story. So anyway, Lux is also a mage. But she went to battle with Silas after drinking Petricite liquid, which temporarily robs you of your magic. She did it since Silas could actually use her power against her with a single touch. So she went there with just a crossbow on her hand. And obviously she lost. But before she could be taken captive, here comes Garen, resurrected from deep coma. He got resurrected because duty calls and that everything that he's lived for is on the brink of destruction. His king, Demacia, and its people. And being the walking embodiment of Demacia, Garen is here to kick some rebel ass. This time though, Lux advised him to lose his sword and use a different weapon. His sword is actually magic, which anti-magic Garen guy didn't know. That was actually the reason for his first defeat against Silas. Silas used the magic from his sword to attack him. So with a regular non-magic weapon in hand, he attacked Silas. However, Silas still had the upper hand because of the dead mages lying around, which is basically a treasure trove for Silas. But this time, Garen's homeboy Jarvan comes to help. Jarvan, energized from his rat meal, is ready to whoop butts. Silas, seeing he's outnumbered, decides to retreat. Silas and the other mages escapes through the sewers, and the rebellion has finally ended. With all of that done and the funeral of the late king coming to an end, order has finally been brought back to the kingdom. Prince Jarvan, who is yet to be crowned king, has taken a hardened stance against mages and magic. He pledged to scourge the kingdom of magic with a fury never before seen by Demacia. He does this as he takes counsel from the prominent nobles within the kingdom, including Garen's hat aunt Tiana, who is a high marshal. Jarvan needs to consider his alliances carefully if he is ever to come into his inheritance and be crowned King Jarvan IV of Demacia.